Apple's best product you may never see. I'm Tonya Hall, and joining me is Lance Ulanoff, award winning technology journalist, public speaker, and television personality. Welcome back, Lance.
Thanks for having me.
Give us a quick summary, if you will, for our audience of your career in tech journalism and analysis.
So it started really officially, the tech journalism part started in 1991 with PC Magazine when it was just print. And I've worked for Windows Magazine, I've worked for Home PC, and my digital experience with PC Mag, began in 96, but then I returned there in 2000. And for a while, I was the digital head and I was editor in chief of PCMag.com. And then I was editor in chief of Mashable, and then I was editor in chief of LifeWire. And so seen a lot. I think I've done a lot. I've watched the digital world change and just keep watching it.
And among all of that, you've been an Apple observer for a long time. And let's talk
Yeah,
about what I think are one of Apple's most important products and maybe that most people might not ever see, and that's their new M1 CPU. You've
yeah,
tested new MacBook Air containing M1.
yeah.
What did you find?
Well, in a way, I wasn't surprised. So they made, this all happened relatively quickly. Apple made the announcement in June of 2020 that they were going to make their own custom silicon and switch the Mac line over to it. And true their word, because obviously they've been working on this for a while. They launched the first set, three systems on this M1 chip in the fall, and it was the Mac Mini, it was the MacBook Pro, and the MacBook Air. And the MacBook Air is the one I tested. And so when I looked at it, I knew that Apple had been doing what's called bespoke silicon, which is really working with their partners to get exactly what they want out of their silicon. They've been doing that for ages on their iPhones and their iPads. And what I'd always found with those systems is they had enormous amounts of headroom, meaning that I couldn't seem to stress these chips out on a mobile. I mean, editing 4K video on an iPhone, I was like, this really, what's the limit? So I was kind of hopeful, and yet I was shocked because the M1 on the Apple MacBook Air was so powerful. The benchmarks were so good. It was so strong. It was so efficient. It just felt like I felt like coming home. It was like, yeah, this is how it should be. I didn't feel like I was, you expect, oh no, it's going to be an ARM based, it's a mobile CPU, so it's not going to be strong enough, but it is strong enough. And it is efficient, 5 nanometers, so it's really efficient. The only area where I felt like that they really had some work to do was because this chip has the ability to run iOS apps, but the iOS apps that ran, a lot of them ran in a smaller window, so it's kind of a weird experience. So that's something that they're still working on. But for an efficient and powerful chip right out of the gate, the first one, I mean, Apple really just, it was astounding. And it should have, all I could imagine is that Intel took one look at these systems and went, what do we do now? Like, what if someone else decides to do this? Meanwhile, there's been hints that Microsoft might do something similar with their own systems.
So then, how disruptive will Apple's CPU and SoC design prowess become?
Well, it's certainly, the fortunate thing for, say, Intel is that Apple still only has what, like 14% of the desktop and laptop market. So it's still not like, Windows, Microsoft Windows, Intel systems are still, all over the world. They're much bigger. And even if Microsoft switches to custom silicon, they don't make all of the Windows systems. And yet, this is more than proof of concept that this can be done. That Apple certainly doesn't need Intel except for real heavy duty multi core systems, the highest end stuff that they're still doing. And then, by the way, they're planning eventually to switch those over when they can figure it all out. But it will be very disruptive. I mean, I can't speak to what's going on at Intel. I will say it's interesting that they just switched CEOs, which means that they're saying, look, we need to get aggressive. We need to figure out a new direction. We can't rest on our laurels here. They spent a lot of time at CES talking about integration of Mobileye, their autonomous driving system with a lot of partners. So, that's where I think they realize they have to branch out. But yeah, it's tremendously disruptive. It's tremendously impressive. I think that when people say, Apple's just good at pizzazz and design, they've always been a showman place. That's how Steve Jobs started it. Apple's about innovation, and this is innovation at the highest level for their categories.
How important is macOS integration in the M1's performance?
Oh, critical. I mean, it had to feel smooth as butter. If it wasn't smooth as butter, if it wasn't just they had upgraded, they had actually they've been sort of taking Mac OS and subtly shifting it a little bit so it was a little bit more like iOS, but not totally, just in areas where it made sense. So now it feels like a bit of an amalgam of the two, but still leaning into the desktop side. Like it doesn't ever feel like, oh my God, now it's like a mobile OS they've squeezed into a big frame. It's not like that at all. That's not what's happening. It's a marriage that works. And it seems to take true advantage of the M1 chip.
What development progression do you see for their M series CPUs?
Well, obviously, they're going to continue to roll it out to additional laptops and desktops, and I'm sure that we're about to within the spring of this year, we will see a number of other systems roll out. An iMac certainly will have it, and then the big question is how long does it take them to get to the multi-core systems necessary to support something like a Mac Pro? I think that is going to be, will they have to have a pair of M1s to do it, or a quad of M1s, or will it be M2 quad or something like that? Like, I think that's what we're going to see, but I don't think that's going to come as quickly, and it's not a problem because that's a niche market. The question is how quickly they get like an iMac onto this platform, and that's definitely happening this year and could happen this spring.
Assuming you use a laptop as a desktop replacement, would you go
Yeah.
with a 13 M1 or a 16-inch with an i9 inside?
Oh, well, see, yeah, an i9 is still going to beat it. An i9, if you have to have that level of power, then you're still going to go with an i9. But most people, I think, can go with a MacBook with an M1. I think most people are going to be more than satisfied with that. But if they're running like some of the most heavy duty audio operations, Final Cut Pro, maybe then they want the iNet. They're rendering, so rendering of video and audio, which is really, processor intensive. Maybe then they're looking at the i9. But if it's a question of maybe i7, I think, I then you probably could get by with the M1.
Great to know. Lance Ulanoff, award winning technology journalist, public speaker, and television personality. If somebody wants to find your work, Lance, get some insight on your thoughts, or maybe follow you on TikTok, I don't know. What's the best way they can do that?
I would always start with Twitter. It's the hub of all of my stuff. It's where I post updates from everything I do, and then from there you can find me elsewhere. And definitely, if you like cool photography, check out my Instagram. I'm taking a lot of pictures of birds lately.
I've noticed that. And you're not just a photographer, you're a great photographer, but you're also an
Oh,
artist. So, you know,
a little bit.
thanks again for your time, Lance.
Pleasure.
And find more of my interviews right here or on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify or TanyaHall.net. Thanks for watching.